You're exporting your After Effects project, sometimes it does feel like it's a jungle out there. There's just so much stuff to output to. As if learning After Effects wasn't complex enough, there's just so much to learn about video and video formats and codecs and all that stuff. So in this video and the next segment as well, we're going to kind of break it down and give you just the basics, what you need to know to get by. Now, obviously, in 2 segments, we're not going to give you a comprehensive list of everything you need to know about video and compressing video, but I am going to give you here basically what you need to know. So let's open up the render queue again, and I'm going to do that by selecting the timeline here. And this time I'm just going to use the keyboard shortcut, which is actually what I use when I'm working in After Effects and not doing video training. That keyboard shortcut is Control-Shift ? On the PC or Command-Shift ? On the Mac. Now, realistically, officially, the keyboard shortcut is Control-Shift /, but I find that so many people don't know their forward slashes and their backslashes, so it's probably easier just to say ? rather than /. Same button, but maybe easier to remember for some. So I'm going to open this up in the render queue, maximize the render queue, click on the hot text lossless to open up the output module, and let's click this video format dropdown and talk about some of these here. Now again, you'll notice more image sequences than you will movie file formats. And every time you see sequence, that's basically just a still image file format. You notice also that there are audio-only formats such as MP3 and WAV. I should also here point out that if you are on a Mac, that you might not see all of the file formats that I'm looking at here. And if you're on a Mac, you might have several more that I don't have here on a Windows machine. But that's okay. The core file formats are the same on both. Adobe Clip Notes we've already talked about. Flash Video is the new standard for video on the web. After Effects CS3 adds Flash Video to the format dropdown here. You used to only be able to export Flash Video by going to File Export, but now, as it's becoming more and more important in the industry, it's now part of this format dropdown here. Now, you could also export your movie clip as an animated GIF. Now, while animated GIFs are definitely losing their place in the web, just completely being dominated by Flash and Flash Video, sometimes GIFs have their place. And a lot of people don't really realize that you can export to an animated GIF right here from After Effects. Notice here we have MPEG 2, but also we have MPEG 2 for DVD and Blu-ray, and we have H.264 for Blu-ray. Now, for every workflow, what you're going to output to is going to be very different. And a lot of the times, your client will specify how they want the final format. That makes it easy for you. If you don't know, there's a couple options. I almost always do one of 2 things. I either output as a target sequence or as a QuickTime movie. 9 times out of 10, I'm doing the target sequence. But I also have been known on occasion to export to a QuickTime movie. And again, even though Video for Windows is the default, and that will create an AVI file, Windows Media typically creates a WMV file. And even though Video for Windows is the default when you're on a Windows machine in After Effects, and even though I'm on a PC, again, I still prefer QuickTime Movie. And those are the basics of the image file formats. At first, it's very intimidating, but when you actually break it down, you realize that there's video formats, audio formats, sequence formats, and then formats for specific media, such as DVD or Blu-ray. You might look at this and say, well, I don't know what an OMF is. I'm not sure what an electric image is. That's okay. You don't have to know. In certain workflows, those image file formats might be critical, but those aren't the standards. And by the way, many of these sequences will get the job done. I prefer a target sequence because of their compatibility with 3D files, and they also store alpha channels. I've just had good luck in the past with target sequences, and I know that they're very big in video and 3D worlds, so I tend to stick to target sequences. Now, with any of these formats, once you select the format, you are not done yet. Let's select QuickTime Movie just as an example, and sometimes you'll get a pop-up, sometimes you won't. If you don't get a pop-up, click on the Format Options button, and you will get that pop-up. This pop-up is the Compression Settings dialog. And folks, I hate to break it to you, but file formats are actually the easy part of exporting. If I click on this compression type dropdown, we'll see that there are many choices here. Folks, right here is where the rubber meets the road. The compression type that you choose from this list plays a bigger role in both quality and file size. It plays a bigger role than the file format. So as I mentioned QuickTime movies, I definitely prefer QuickTime over Windows Media. But you could have a really big QuickTime file that looks like junk, and you could also have a really small AVI file that looks pretty good. It's all in how you compress it. Now, all of these things in this dropdown, all of these compression types, these are called codecs. And that is the subject of our next segment here. We're going to dedicate one whole movie just to talking about these codecs, ones that you should use. And other than that, again, like the file formats, the stuff that we don't mention, you typically don't really need to know about. So let's move along to the next segment and demystify codecs.